can help. But there are other ways that we can cultivate this. And one of the most important applications of the sense of awe or humility and wonder, sense of adventure toward living that I've found recently is my work with a grassroots movement called Braver Angels. They have some 10,000 members now across the country. They bring self-identified liberals and conservatives together for living room style conversations to address the cultural and political divides that these people are so stuck in. And these have been amazing and transformational meetings. And I've synthesized that work as a moderator for that group into what I call the experiential democracy dialogue. I know I have to wind up soon, which is in my book, The Depolarizing of America. It lays all of this out in a lot of detail. I have a 6-phase model of helping people with very different backgrounds just learn to sit with one another, be present to one another, so that they can learn about and understand one another, as opposed to presume, or what so often happens in our society, belittle one another.
We'll throw it to you first, Dr. Monica Brooker, and given what you do as far as in law enforcement, the NYPD, also being a clinical psychologist, in your vast work in equity and inclusion, I'd love to hear what you have to say and maybe a question for one of our researchers.
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you all for talking about awe and all of these different dimensions. You know, I have to say that it has been like an extraordinary year in law enforcement. And while public safety and all of those things are at the forefront, it's also been an experience in vulnerability for individuals within law enforcement. And even beyond that, to Dr. Valdesolo's point, it's been a vulnerability point in terms of order, because so much is pushing in on this job and the environment. And so 3 things that stood out that really I feel like speaks to the work that we're doing is there is polarization, right? There's polarization with the community in terms of us and them. And then there's also internal polarization about who matters and what matters. And all of those things are pressing in. But then that makes me jump over to the need for safety. And so I really want to turn to you, Dr. Schneider, because I think that space of reflection, that being able to pull out the lens and to see things a little bit more clearly is so critical for us to, be the best that we can be at this job. So if you could talk a little bit more about the dialogues that you had, and if you could speak about what the outcomes were, so we know that there is a pathway for change as we sort of use awe and as we get better at our sort of reflective practice, if you will.
Yes, thank you, Monica. Excellent question. First of all, safety is critical to these dialogues. That's something I didn't have a chance to emphasize, but one of the first things that we immerse people in are the ground rules. And the ground rules are crucial in setting the tone for the dialogues. They have everything to do with safety, support. The ground rules request that people attempt to come from a place of curiosity, really try to tap that sense of wondering about another person or about otherness in general versus presumption. Also, bringing your best self to the situation, your humanity, trying to avoid nonverbal devaluations, which is so easy to do. The big sigh or rolling of the eyes, we say this to people to really try to avoid that. Clear a space for cultivating presence. So the other piece here is that structure is very important. So having structured dialogues helps people to avoid going off the rails, which happens so quickly in these charged, divisive conversations that people tend to engage in flame throwing very quickly and defensiveness or violence. So what we try to do is, again, to help people to learn to center themselves more, be more present to the otherness in themselves as well as the other through these phases. And before jumping into a dialogue about a very charged issue, again, helping them to immerse in what it may be like to actually see this dialogue partner as a human being and not just a label. And a lot of the exercises or the phases are designed around humanizing the partners. Because we've learned from very hard experience that if you don't have that safety and structure, these dialogues go off the rails very quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I hope that's helpful.